Hello there, and welcome to Jordan, and what is considered to be one of the safest countries in all of the Middle East. But as travellers, that's not quite enough to draw us here. I think it would have to be its diversity. Over the course of this show, we will sample everything from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea. We'll walk through the same desert that Muhammad, Moses and Jesus all wandered through. We'll get a dollop of its dynamic capital city, and yes, we will be sampling ancient ruins. Now, I have to admit, this is my first trip to Jordan, so I cannot wait for this journey to begin. This incredible adventure with Scenic, uncovering the essence of Egypt and Jordan, has landed us in Amman. Now, from here, we'll be headed to the Lost City of Petra. Then, we're on to the desert landscapes of Wadi Rum. Further south to the Red Sea, and finishing up at the Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth. Just north of Amman are the Roman ruins of Jerash, one of Jordan's greatest sites, second only in popularity to Petra. Now that's pretty impressive. So that would have been the front door to Jerash.
It is the front door of Jerash, and it's called Hadrian's Gate.
I know Hadrian, yep.
Yeah. Built around 2,000 years ago. And as you see, it's still very well preserved. Lead us to the beautiful city of Jerash, which is one of the most well-preserved Roman ruins in the Middle East.
And how many people would have lived here?
Around 10,000 people back then, so it was a quite big city.
Among the ruins is a forum, an amphitheatre and a hippodrome that once held over 15,000 spectators. I know that hippodrome means circus in Latin, so this is where the fun would take place.
Yeah, and this is the place where they used to do the chariot race, which was the most popular sport back then.
You can absolutely feel the energy, the moment that you walk through those gates into this stadium, the history that took place here.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right, yeah.
I'll admit, so much so, it is very easy here to get a little carried away in the moment. My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. You must have seen that Gladiator movie. Come on.
Of course I saw it. Of course I saw it.
From Amman, we are headed to Petra. Yes, indeed, unquestionably Jordan's greatest and most popular attraction. But first I'd like to take you on a little detour to Bethany beyond the Jordan. This is where all the big names go to, on the eastern bank of the Jordan River. Now, Jordan has long been on the Christian pilgrimage route. Most people choose to visit Mount Nebo, where it's believed that Moses saw the Promised Land. Then they'll come here to visit the baptism sites, making their way through to Jerusalem via Jericho. You might have heard of some of those names. So now that we are here at Bethany beyond Jordan, I'd like to show you a few things. It is believed that from here, this is where Elijah was taken up to heaven, and directly underneath, this is the very cave that John the Baptist lived in, right here. And when you come to this area, it is so peaceful. You can hear the sound of the moving reeds. You can see the bushes that he would have taken his food from. And right there is the spring which would flow in winter, the spring that would go down to the River Jordan. And just a little bit further on, the site's main point of interest for Christian pilgrims. And to be fair, it really is fascinating, regardless of whatever your religious affiliation is. It was right here that John the Baptist met and baptized Jesus. Now, sadly, at the moment, because of drought, there is no water here. But what I can tell you is that at 390 metres below sea level, it is the lowest archaeological site on Earth, but also the closest to heaven. It is time that we experience the #1 attraction in all of Jordan, the fabled rose-red city that is half as old as time. In the words of the man who rediscovered it, the Swiss explorer Jean Burckhardt, it is the most elegant remains in antiquity. Welcome to Petra. Our scenic Essence of Egypt and Jordan journey has brought us to what is without a doubt one of the world's most extraordinary sights. And even after a trip of endless highlights, nothing can quite prepare you for Petra. Adding to that is the dramatic positioning of its #1 attraction, the Treasury. A long, narrow gorge opens up to reveal this iconic facade in all of its glory. What's inside?
There is nothing inside. You know, the Nabateans were different than Egyptian, let's say. So Nabateans used to cremate. Then they put the ash in a jar. They bury the jar some way. Then they just carve a memorial, believing that the soul of the dead person will be they and living an eternal life.
You know, in its heyday, the city was home to over 30,000 people. And right at the helm were the Nabateans, a nomadic Arab tribe. Can we just have a reality check? There's a lot of tourists here. Petra is the only place in Jordan with a 0 unemployment rate. All the locals are in on the game. And it was actually the locals who named this place the Treasury. Can you see the urn at the top? They thought that was a pot of gold, and they used to shoot at it thinking if they could just break it open, treasures would flow out. Well, they quickly found out it's solid rock, but you can still see the pockmarks. Up until the 1980s, the local Bedouin people lived here in the caves dotted all over these vast cliff faces.
Petra became like a World Heritage Site. That village was created, and they asked the Bedouins to move from the caves to the village. So nobody lives in the caves anymore.
You are not going to believe this. Before I left home, I was told to read this book, Married to a Bedouin, a New Zealand lady who went camping over here, and she married a local. Well, guess what? That's her there. Salam. Are you really Marguerite?
I'm Marguerite.
I'm reading your book.
Oh, yeah?
I'm reading your book. Before I left, I was told I had to read your book, and then my guide, Louis, said, I know her. She's actually here.
Yeah, I'm here. I've been here a while now.
I'm a little bit starstruck. I can't quite get my head around this.
So I'm Marguerite.
Oh, well, I'm Catriona. Lovely
Hi,
to meet
Catriona.
you.
How are you?
So, how did you end up marrying a Bedouin?
Well, I was backpacking here, and so I was wandering aimlessly, and I met Mohammed on the steps of the Treasury, actually. And yeah, we got married 2 months later.
It is a very fascinating story from a pretty darn amazing woman who now proudly calls Petra home.
It was okay living in the cave. You know, there was one room. My housework was done in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, cool. I would love that. The entire site is packed with archaeological gems, and I think it's fair that I should let you know most do require a little effort to get to. Heavens to Betsy! What is the story?
So, yeah, this is one of the royal tombs carved by the Nabateans. We call it the urn tomb because of the big urn that is located at the top. So, making your way up here will enable you to enjoy this lovely view overlooking the valleys of Petra. Amazing, isn't it?
Would you look at those colours?
Yeah. They're all natural colors. It's iron oxidization. But the black color has a different story. Around 60 years ago, a local family was living over here, and they wanted to make a fire for cooking. So you can see the place of the fire just right.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
And just when you thought you had worn your little walking shoes in, Louis tells me we have a 900-step climb right up to his favourite site, the monastery. So why would they build it so far up, so far away?
A memorial belongs to a king whose name is Ubada, and he is the only Nabatean king who asked his people to worship him. So he needed to have this sacred place up there, close to heaven.
Close to heaven.
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Being hidden high in the hills gives this legendary monument even more wow factor. It's kind of similar in design to the Treasury, but it's bigger, and some would say it's even more beautiful.
Yeah, it's you know, from my personal point of view, it's the most beautiful carving in the whole place.
Why do you say that?
You know, look at the size, look at the details. They're still in a good shape, although this carving is more than 2,000 years old.
You may not have heard of the name Wadi Rum, but you might just recognise this landscape. The Wadi Rum Desert has been used in loads of films. Maybe you saw The Martian, or what about Lawrence of Arabia? Hello, 7 Oscars. And it was actually through this very area that the man himself, T.E. Lawrence, travelled through during the First World War. Millions of years of geological changes, erosion and evolution have created this incredible landscape. It was described by Mr. Lawrence himself as vast, echoing and godlike. When Lawrence of Arabia, in real life, came through here, this was where he met with the Bedouin people?
Yes, by the 7 pillars of wisdom, he used to meet with the sheikhs of the Bedouin tribes to consult with them about the war.
My lovely guide and very proud Jordanian Odi says, quite simply, this is his happy place. How come you love coming into the desert?
The desert for me means freedom, silence, and meditation. You can let your brains work in a proper way.
Oh my goodness! Camels up ahead.
Do you know they can stay with no food, no water for 10 days. After 10 days, you start having problems with them. And if it's got no hump, what do you call it?
Humpless?
Humphrey.
As well as the mind-blowing geology, the history of this area. Oh, it's so juicy, it's fascinating.
There on the rock over there,
Yes.
you see the ancient graffitis, camels, warriors on camels. They date them to the 3rd century BC. That makes them more than 2,200 years old.
Wow. And while there's still many traditional Bedouin people that call this ancient desert home, you will not be needing to bed down in a cave for an overnight stay, not unless you want to, of course. There's actually quite a few different camps to choose from. And I'm not sure, but I think I've been booked into the best of the bunch. Hey, you know how I told you earlier on about them filming The Martian here? Well, these were the tents that they used during the filming. You can now rent them out. They are called Martian tents, of course. And apart from them having a lovely loo and a hot shower, they do also have heating. I've been told it can get very cold in the desert at night. But I think that my favourite thing would have to be these curtains. You can open them wide up and look at the stars at night. There is something quite spiritual about spending time out here. And Wadi Rum has a certain sense of magic that just casts its spell on you. Do you know, Audi, I think this has been my highlight of the trip. Respect to Petra, but I think this has been the highlight.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that.
It's just so
That's
beautiful.
big credit to Wadi Rum.
It is.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, صحة.
Welcome to Aqaba, a resort town on the Red Sea and one of the final stops on our epic Essence of Egypt and Jordan journey with Scenic. Now, Jordan has just 27 kilometres of coastline, but that tiny entrance to the sea opens up a whole world of underwater life here in the resort town of Aqaba. Scenic has us staying at the Kempinski Hotel, the only five-star digs in the area. The hotel is sprawled right along the waterfront with direct access to the Red Sea and oceanfront swimming pools. But what the guests are here to see is beyond those sandy shores. So where are you taking me out to?
Oh, we're going to the South Beach, actually, where our main reefs are. In Aqaba, we've got around 28 reefs here.
A lot to choose from.
A lot to choose from.
Now, Ahmed, you have gone snorkeling here before.
Of course, many times, yes.
So it just looks like the deep blue ocean to me. What am I going to see?
It's not really so deep, but it's a very beautiful area here. We call this area the Japanese garden.
Japanese garden,
Yes.
sounds lovely.
So people say that some of the Japanese came to plant a few corals in here, but on the other hand, if you go, which we will do right now, you'll see the corals. Some of them, they got the shape of a Japanese hat.
This really is a hidden paradise for snorkeling, and it's something that I certainly was not quite expecting on my visit to Jordan. Well, for the record, the temperature in the water is heavenly. The moment that I jumped in, I saw the most gorgeous stripy fish. I'm sorry, I don't know the name. But I do have to say, I swam out a little bit and there was the most lovely coral. Still have no idea what the Japanese garden means, but don't worry, it's all in there. You'll love it. While the Red Sea is home to a wealth of marine life, the Dead Sea, as the name would suggest, has none of it. Nope, thanks to the intense salinity in its waters. There are, however, loads of other attractions. Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to the lowest point on Earth. Now, the reason why I am floating is because of the density of the salt in the water. And for what it's worth, the water feels amazing. It's cool, it's lovely. Isn't this just a bucket list experience? But if you only remember one thing I share with you today, never shave the day you bathe. Trust me on that. So straddling the border between Israel and Jordan, this saltwater lake is more than 6 times saltier than the ocean. Well, how's this for service? Wasn't quite expecting this. But I suppose this is how Cleopatra would have done it. This is where Cleopatra used to have her mud baths. Now, the reason that the mud makes your skin glow is because the mud's had thousands of years to soak up the salt and the minerals. And it gets the blood churning, and that gives you the glow. What do you say we do double on the face? I think so. Who's for a cuddle? The Dead Sea mud is exported in beauty products right around the world. And here at the Hilton Dead Sea, access is right on your doorstep. In a trip full of 5-star hotels and incredible accommodation experiences, it's hard to pick a favourite, but I will say this one is definitely leaving its mark. And of course, look at this room with a view. Not to mention, it is a gorgeous place to just swan around after you're feeling high on life from soaking in the salty waters. Well, I'm feeling pretty darn fantastic. 1, for getting down and dirty in the Dead Sea, and 2, for my very first journey through Jordan. Now, didn't I promise you it would be diverse? We've had that in spades, from the desert to the Dead Sea. We've had the bright lights of Amman, World Heritage Sites. And don't forget Egypt. If you want to satisfy the bucket list, if you need to satisfy the wanderlust, this is the journey you must come on.